Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to That's What She Said with me, Christiana Malacara. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to That's What She Said. As each and every week, we spill the tea. When I get asked, what does that mean, Christiana? I feel like, you know what? It means whatever you want it to mean, because every week we're talking about women empowerment. We are not holding back. We are sharing everything. So maybe that's what it means, spilling the tea. We're just letting it all flow and just organically move. These conversations are not scripted. They are a whole lot of fun. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we always laugh. We always laugh. And we always end up giving just this wonderful piece of advice from a woman who is doing the thing. From all walks and all chapters throughout their life, we bring in women, which it's fascinating. It's so fascinating. I always say this in person to people. I am never ever gonna run out of cool ladies to talk to. There's just so many around the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond. So I add that beyond portion. Just because there's so many ways to tune in and to listen. Something fun actually happened this past week. Um, we have a pool of listeners in Alabama and a pool of listeners in Chicago. So there's this really cool thing that's happening through social media. The share, the expansion, and so we are getting there. We're going places, people, and that is only possible because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. So the ways that you can listen are WSGW.com and on the radio waves 100.5 and 790 Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. On social media, if you go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page, you're going to find the entire archive of That's What She Said episodes. And then, as always, you can tune in where you find your favorite podcast, which we all know is That's What She Said with me. Anywhere you get your favorite podcast, we are there. So thank you for being part of the journey. So I was recently asked, oh, gosh, you're so confident. How is it that you have built your confidence? And I didn't even get a chance to answer that question. The girl next to me jumped right in and she's like, well, you fake it till you make it. And it's just one of those sayings, right? You fake it till you make it. But I actually like kind of challenged that a little bit, and I said, well, you build it. You build it in little blocks. I'm going to try this today. I'm going to try this today. I'm going to try this today. And then before you know it, you've built this path, this journey for yourself with one step forward each day. And moving forward brings its own confidence. Many times I've sat across from women, and most recently, if you've been tuning in, most recently, the women across from me have been saying, do something scary. Yeah, that's scary, but let's do it anyway. Let's do it together. You have a village of people you put around you to help you get through that. And each and every piece of these blocks that you're putting together is a little ounce of confidence. And before you know it, you're going to be, 2 years and nearly 100 episodes deep into something that you started out with one step of, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So as you navigate through this, That's What She Said, to the next, let's try something new. Let's try to build those blocks of confidence up. And then before you know it, you're going to be somewhere that you thought you would never end up. The guest I have today is absolutely wonderful. She has a journey. She is going to share her building blocks of confidence. It just radiates off of her. We have Miss Nicole Liggins with us. Hi, Nicole.
Well, hello. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You're in the room with me, so I am excited. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I am even more excited. I was just really just listening to what you were saying and, about the whole confidence piece. And I had to sit and reflect. Like how, what is that whole thing about confidence? I mean, how do you build that? Is that something that you're born with, or is that something that you cultivate? Is it a mixture?
It's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question when you think about it, right?
Exactly. You have to take a moment to think about it. But before we get any further into that conversation, Nicole, because I do want to start there, how might the community know you?
Well, The community may know me from some of the work that I do. For the last 20 years, I have owned a child care facility that's local called Building Blocks Child Care and Preschool Center, serving pre-K through fifth grade students. And then since 2016, my husband and I have co-owned a mental health agency called Guided Grace. And then since 2020, my husband and I have co-owned a nonprofit mental health agency called Guided Grace Family and Youth Services. And so I would say that is the work that I do and that I so enjoy and love to do. So that's how the community may know me, from some of those things. And then of course I've done some volunteer work for our community as well. And so I would say that's how folks would know me.
I didn't realize that your childcare was called Building Blocks, and I just used it.
I know.
I just used those words
Yes, you
in the
did.
terms of confidence. So let me take you back a little bit here. This intro came from, I was sitting down with a group of friends, and all of our birthdays are in the same month.
Oh,
And we're all different ages, all different walks of life, all different cultural backgrounds, single, married, kids, no kids, lived out of the country, entrepreneurs, all as diverse as it gets. And that was the question, because we all navigate through life
right,
with confidence. We're like, where did this come from and when did it start?
right.
So bringing that into the now, being an entrepreneur like yourself, right? That takes a lot of confidence. You're taking a bet on yourself.
Hmm.
Where
Yes,
did that
indeed.
come from?
You know what? So I'll say this. I've been asked that question before as far as just the entrepreneurship part. I do have my family. I have a family of entrepreneurs. My aunt was really an inspiration. I was really little, and I remember going to this record shop when I was little. My family's from Greenville, Mississippi, so we're kind of transplanted. My mother and father were born in Greenville, Mississippi, and so every summer I would have to go there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question. I didn't get to go to Disney World and all those things. We were going back down south. I would go down south for the summers. And I remember seeing my aunt had this record shop. It was called the Disco Den. And I would go there and my uncle ran it. It was their shop together. And I just remember thinking, that's interesting. They own something. Like, how interesting is that? And, in our community, the African American community, for me to see that was very inspiring, especially as a child.
Mhm.
I was very nosy. I say the word nosy. Now we say curious. But I was nosy. I'll say it because it's me. I was. As a child, I wanted to know everything that was going on in my surroundings, especially with people who were older than me. And so that was the first person in my family. And then some years later, my uncle, who was in the military, he was in the Air Force. He was in the Air Force, but it seemed like somehow I remember him working for Sears. And I was like, why does Uncle Gary work for Sears and he's in the Air Force and he
Didn't make
drive?
sense.
It didn't make any sense. He
Okay.
drives this nice little car. Like, what's going on here? Well, what I realized is some years later, my mom called me and she said, "Do you know that Uncle Gary just bought a Sears store?" I said, "A whole store? How do you do that? How you buy a
Yeah.
Sears store?" Now, I know I'm dating myself because y'all know Sears is gone. Sears is said goodbye. But what he did is he bought these Sears dealer stores. And so what a Sears dealer store was, it was a Sears that didn't sell the clothing.
Mhm.
It just sold all the hardware. Like it would sell like the electronics and like the refrigerators and the lawnmowers and all those things. Well, not even yeah, he sold TVs and stuff like that too. So he bought Sears dealer stores in Tennessee and Mississippi. And so he ended up having like 6 of them.
That's so fascinating.
Wasn't that? And I was just like, how did he do that? And so all those years he really was interning. It was like he was interning and he said, I just always have loved retail. And I was in the, he spent about 25 years in the military, but then got out, and that's what he did. He owned stores, and now he owns a UPS store in Hampton, Virginia. So, he was always my inspiration. And so when I took the idea of just being an entrepreneur to him, he said, "You can do anything you want to do.
Mm.
You can do anything that you want to do."
When he said that to you, what were the emotions going through you at that moment?
How?
Mm.
How do I do it? Where, like, where does the money come from? I think the logistics of it.
Yeah.
How does that part work? I mean, I knew it was possible because I saw that he did it, and he was tangible. He was someone who talked to me. So that was very inspiring, but I didn't know the how. And that was scary to me.
So it was there, not out of reach,
Yeah,
but still there was all these questions of the unknown.
that's right. That's right. And so what I then had to do is, and here's the thing about a dream. I often tell people this. Some people are meant to plant the seed, and we've heard this analogy. Some people are there to plant the seed, some people are there to water the seed, and then some people are there for you to cultivate that harvest with them. They're there to enjoy the fruits of the labor. There's just a full gamut. And so I think Uncle Gary was there for me, and Aunt Doris were there to plant the seed. They were the seed planters for me. That's what they were for me. And they're still with us today, and they're still an inspiration to me. Both of them are. Um, but that's mainly what their whole contribution was, that. And then I had to figure it out. And so that's what happened. And early on, you make mistakes, you don't understand how things go. But I often, I had some good people come in my life and show me some things. I have a mentor who I just kept on bugging this man and bugging this man. And finally he said, look, Nick, you can't call me all day, every day. We have to set aside some time
Dedicate time.
and dedicate time, and all your questions. We'll answer all your questions then. And so that's how I kind of became the entrepreneur I am today, and in understanding how childcare works and understanding how business works. Because really, if you understand business, you can open up anything if you understand how business itself works.
So when it came down to, your uncle says, Nikki, you can do anything.
Hmm.
Do you think that the curiosity was sparked? Do you feel that you were confident in asking how? Because I know we have lots of listeners, and women in general. Man, we in the state of Michigan, women surpass men as far as entrepreneurship, and then within that category, even further, is a population of minority, right? And this is just, that there's just women who just want to see change happen. If it's in a smaller or larger part of their life, then what piece of advice would you give to her when she's standing in front of the person that's doing the thing? And I'm saying, Nicole Liggins, but how? What advice would you give her?
What I would tell her is, and this is really what my husband has told me several times, you cannot be afraid to ask for what you want. And I think a lot of times as women, because we are so giving of ourselves, some of us are mothers, some of us are wives, some of us are, teachers and all the things. And we get so hung up on giving ourselves that we don't feel right asking for what we want and being very direct.
Have you ever had that happen to you where you just don't feel like asking, for whatever reason it might
Absolutely. It happens to me more than not. I mean, I can get in some rooms and I can sit back and I can listen to what everyone else is saying. And I'm like, no, this is not the right time. This doesn't seem like the right time. And finally, my husband sat me down. He said, look, let me tell you something. You are in very powerful rooms. You are in some rooms where all of the money is in those rooms. But the problem is your mouth stays shut. You have everything you need right in front of you, but you are afraid to ask for it.
Why do you think you were afraid to ask for it?
For me at those moments, I believe in intuition, but I do believe that there was some fear there. And I don't know where it came from at the time, but I tell you what, once he sat me down and talked to me, I've been asking ever since. I've been asking. And I don't know, but I think sometimes, and this goes back to kind of Uncle Gary, when a person just believes in you and just sparks that. I think sometimes as women we get tired. We're tired of the day to day. We just get tired of the push and everything we have to do. And I think in a sense I feel like, well, I'm here. Why do I have to always ask for? Why do I have to always? I feel like for me I have to, and I won't say this in a way, I hope this doesn't sound funny, but I feel like even as women, we have to kind of politic our way through a little bit harder than maybe others do
It's
because we're
definitely
women.
definitely a different way of having conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a different way that we have to approach situations. And I think sometimes there's a fatigue that goes along with that. And I think when I'm in those rooms, sometimes when I'm listening to certain conversations, in my head, I'm like, you know what? Ugh, here we go again. Do I feel like this performance today? But I have to then realize if I don't ask, I'm not always asking for me. I have to look at the big picture.
Mm.
I work to serve children. I work for the mental health and the betterment of the community. So I have to look at that.
Yeah.
And so me choosing my feelings that day means that I'm really choosing not to help somebody in the community or not to maybe have the funding that we need for children who maybe need that programming because I chose my feelings.
So you're looking at the bigger picture in the sense of decision making. You said just a moment ago, you said, well, it was fear.
Sure.
Fear is the opposite in my mind of confidence.
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm going into a dark room. I'm confident walking in. I'm going into a dark room. I'm fearful of what's in there.
Sure.
Maybe I may not go in there.
Sure.
So what tips, maybe 2 or 3 tips when someone is in this fear, if it is the ask for, a raise, or if it's the fear of, leaving a relationship, or the fear of even just purchasing a car,
Mm,
right? These are
mm.
all little investments here and to make ourselves better. But we establish that sometimes women get stuck.
Mhm. Mhm. We
Nicole, you're
do.
not stuck.
No. No. And
What are a few things that you could do to get unstuck from that?
well, here's what I tell people. We can't assume that we understand or we know what the other person is thinking, right? We can't assume that. Those are assumptions. And to assume that you understand what the other person, what's in their head is really just it's you guessing. It's your brain guessing. It's your brain trying to come up with these assumptions about some people that might even be strangers. I mean, you talked about going to buy a car. Um, it's funny because my husband used to sell cars, and I realized before I married him that I paid way more for cars than I should pay for cars since now that I'm married to him because he told me, you know, when you don't have the knowledge ahead of time, you're gonna pay more. But because he understood what was getting ready to happen, right? But my brain always beforehand was guessing. And so, yeah, I was fearful of what that car payment would be. I was fearful of all these other things. But now I'm taking someone in there with me who knows exactly what's going on here. So what I would
Mhm.
tell women is this: don't guess. Stop guessing what the other person thinks. What I need you to do is head on, face the fear. You go in there and you ask for what you want because that's what you want. We can't guess about what the other person is thinking. There's no way we can do that, but you know what you need. And only you can know what you need for you. And they can't guess about what you need. That's unfair to ask someone to guess about what your needs are.
Well, they might not even come out with the answer that you want.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because they're different. Their agenda and your agenda could be two different things, right? And so that's for me, how I've kind of combated that. And so, I mean, and I think that's because as you live longer and as we get a little older, we look at situations different. Is this battle worth fighting? Do I even need to deal with this right now? Or is this a can that I can set aside, not kick down the road, just set aside for later? And can I deal with these things right now that mean more to me, that matter more for me? And that's, I think, the place I am in my life where I categorize things that way. It's better for my mental wellness. Keeps me grounded.
I hope y'all heard that. That is called spilling the tea. I really like what you're telling me, and we're going to come back to part of that in the second half. But before we get there, you said when I go to purchase a car now, I take my husband with me. He knows, and I take him with me. He's been down this path, and I take him with me.
I do. I do.
I think that's very well. One, that's smart. Can he go with me next time I go?
He can.
Okay. You have just
I can arrange
adopted
it.
somebody.
Look, I'm making go.
But then also, if you're going down a path that you've never been, and you have the opportunity to take somebody with you that has been, then why not?
And listen, I know what women are thinking. And let me say, I can hear folks right now. I don't need a man to go with me. I can go myself. Listen, you can. Go ahead on and pay more. Because for me, I love to give my husband some honeydew things. Honey, come on, so you can do this with me. Because at the end of the day, who wants to spend more, right?
Exactly.
And
And that's just honestly a small portion of it, right? We're taking somebody with us. It doesn't matter if it's him or her. We're getting the job done and we're doing it even better together. So we have Nicole Liggins with us. We are going to take a quick break. You were listening to That's What She Said, and we will be right back.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of That's What She Said with myself and Nicole Liggins. She is so cool in the first half. If you missed it, I'm sorry. Tune back in because it was absolutely stellar. The ways that you can listen to Tune Back In are on anywhere on social media, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere that you're receiving your podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Apple. We're there. Go to this episode with Nicole Liggins. Nicole mentioned something very interesting in the first half. Well, she mentioned a lot of things interesting in the first half, but one of the things that stood out the most, she said, when it comes to decision making, you're talking with other people, you're communicating with other people, and they might not have your best interest in mind in those rooms. Can you elaborate?
Well, yeah. I mean, people don't. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone has an agenda, and as women, and we were talking about entrepreneurship, right? And how we're in different spaces in different rooms. We're trying to make different moves, and because it is imperative that I make these moves, because that business needs to stand strong. And I know that the rooms I'm in, other people have their separate goals that they have. They have these separate agendas that they have. And, not everyone wants to see you successful, period. For whatever those reasons are. And I think, for me, I had to realize that not everybody loves you, Nicole.
What?
Yeah, not everybody loves me.
Was that a hard pill to swallow?
It was. It was because I didn't understand why. Why wouldn't you? I didn't do anything to you. And that was my thought. Like I didn't do anything to you. But what I had to realize as I got older is you don't have to do anything to anybody. Sometimes just your presence alone, you're too big for somebody to love.
Mm.
And so your presence itself makes people feel uncomfortable. in certain settings, and then their agenda gets in the way of whatever your goals are, and that clashes in its own self. And so some people just feel that threatened. But what I often tell people about that is simple for me always. You just have to stay focused. Stay focused on what it is that you're doing. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right. You stay focused on whatever goals that you have. And for me, that has worked, because when I started getting sidetracked with what they said, she said, I said, they heard, and all these things, then I then became sidetracked and got off track.
Two-part question here. One, we're just taking a small step back. Does everyone need to love you?
No, no, everyone doesn't. Now I know that, right? But it was a gut punch when I realized, why don't they love me? Why can't they love? I didn't realize that. And I think one of the issues and one of the times I would say when that really came to fruition, and for me it came, throughout a tragic event in my life. Um, it came through trauma. My mother passed away. And I think that was for me one of my biggest cheerleaders, one of the people that just
Loved you.
loved me with everything. Like she loved the good parts, the bad parts, the stinky parts, the sweet smelling part, like every part of you, every part of me, she loved. And so I think because she loved so hard and loved me so well, I was clouded by those who didn't love me. And I just assumed they loved me. You know what I mean? And then, the mask came off when she was gone. As to those folks who really I thought they were on team Nicole, and they really weren't there. And it became okay. But I really had to work through that.
How did you learn that lesson? Because you're telling us how it started and how your eyes were open to this, but how did you learn that lesson? Because you were clearly on the other end of it.
Man, it was hard. I don't know that that's a lesson that you ever really learn, but I think it's something that your eyes are open to. You realize it was always there. You just never saw it. And once you saw it, you paid attention and you recognized it. And for me, that's what that was, and it was hurtful. It was very hurtful. And I think until you go through something that hurts, you're an unfinished product.
Until you go through something that hurts, you're an unfinished product.
You're an unfinished product. Mm-hmm.
And that hurt was losing your mother.
It was definitely that. It changed the core of the person and the woman that I was. I thought I was a woman until I lost my mom. I was a little girl until she passed away. And then through the grief and the healing of that, I became a woman. Because I always reverted back to her. Everything I needed. Mom. Hey, mom. Hey, make me that soup. Hey, mom, I need that. Mom, I'm sick. I don't feel good. What do I do? Hey, mom, I was still that little girl in the 30-some-year-old body, or in the 20-some-year-old body, or whatever it was. Right. Mm-hmm. And then when she passed away, and you can't call on mom like you used to call on mom, what do? Then I had to really
what did
grow
you
up.
do? That was going to be my next question, is what is it that you did to navigate out of, or what did you do to navigate through that hardship and grief at that time?
Oh, I was angry. I was sad. I was mad. I went through all of the stages of grief that you could go through. I mean, everything that you could go through, because in a sense, my mom was even my business partner, right? She was even my mother ran my daycare for years. Even now today, people come in and they're like, Miss Gloria's not here. I'm like, Miss Gloria has not been with us for 7 years. Like, where have you been? Like, I'm sorry, you still having kids. Now you done had another child. Now you want Miss Gloria? Like, she is not here. They're like, well, I guess we'll deal with you. I'm like, I'm not the director either. But it took a long time just for me. Even now I can even say I can't even go down the street that I grew up on. It's still, there's still pain there. For even me to drive down that street still does something to me. I mean, there's still these little pockets of pain,
Mm.
you know, that still resonate, that are still there.
After
And,
7 years.
after 7 years, they're
So
still there.
you do have a business that helps with mental health.
Absolutely.
7 years ago, when you lost Miss Gloria, your
Mhm.
mother, can you share what that mental health state might have looked like? Because I know that we have
Oh
listeners
my
that
gosh.
have gone through this and are still going through it. And the reason I ask is you're on the end and coming out of so many things,
Yes.
and you walk around just glowing. So it's like you said, you have to go through something.
That's right. Until you go through something that hurt, you're an unfinished product. And ironically, my mother wrote that, and that sat on her desk at the bottom of her computer, taped at the bottom of her computer in her handwriting for years. And when she passed away, I was going through something and I just happened to look over, and it's almost like that was a message from her. And I just thought, ugh. Like, you still talking to me. Like, you still have, but to get back to your question, um, you know, you would think, since literally I live with a clinical mental health therapist, you would think that would have helped. Like, you would think that would have helped. And in a lot of ways, I could say maybe it did, but it did not help with the pain of it. It was physically painful for me. But what I said that let me just go back. My mother passed away. She had cancer. And so that in itself was hard to watch a parent go through that. Um and especially when you were just attached to the hip with this woman. I mean, I just was attached to the hip with this woman. And taking her down to her chemo and doing all the things. She loved to shop. We'd go shopping right after chemo. I'm like, "You're up to shopping?" She was like, "Absolutely, take me or else." And we would do the things.
Yeah.
And then for her um to just to leave the way she did, but she left marching orders. It was kind of like the doctor came in and said, "Look, we don't know why, but things have just, things are eh, have just, we don't, the cancer is spread. It looks like you have a couple days now." And we were like, "Wait, what? You just said she was fine. Like, what do you mean?" And so it was the shock of that. And she said, "Look," she said, "we knew what it was. It was what it was, and it is what it is. I need you to sit down. Let me tell you what I need you to do." And she gave marching orders to everyone. And she did it just as calm as I'm talking to you. And she said, "I don't need you to fall out. I don't need you to act out of character. I need you to behave just as if we knew what it was, because we do." And that's how she behaved. And so I had to go in business mode. And I went in business mode. I took care of all the arrangements. I did all the things. And I didn't give myself time to grieve. And after she left, I gave myself that time. We sold the house within a week, it sold. Like, everything was so quickly that the business of it all was so fast. And then afterwards, when it was time to grieve, I think that grieving process with me took a couple years. It just, even more, for me to not just go through every single step and give myself the time that I needed. But, to your listeners, I would say, give yourself time. There is no end date to grief. I even hear a song sometimes and I will break down. I will see somebody who was a friend of my mom's just out and about, who I hadn't seen in a long time, and I knew she was a friend, and I'll just give myself a moment. You get to do that. You have permission to do that. And so that's what I would say.
when the doctor came in and said, we have a short amount of time, a few
Yeah.
days here.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom
Hmm.
sounds like she's just like, all right, well, this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
So she sounds like, and I wasn't in that room, sounds like there was a lot of peace to this.
There was. The only time I ever saw her shed a tear was when I asked her what do I tell my daughter? I said, "Well, what, I have a daughter. Her name is Park." I said, "Well, what do I tell Park? What do you want me to tell Park?" And she was so close to her. She was close to her grandkids. She loved her grandchildren. But that's the only time she held her finger up and she shook her finger and she said, "That one I can't do." And I said, "Well, wait a minute." I said, "Oh, no, 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 you don't. You don't get to do that." I said, I have to tell this girl something because she loves her granny.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, because no one knew this was happening. So the kids, everyone was oblivious to this. And it was shocking. Park was 9, I think, when all this happened. And she said, "I can't do that one." And uh, she said, and that's the only time I saw a tear. That was the only time. I
She had
mean,
a
she
lot of
was strong.
strength.
She
Yep,
was
there we go.
strong. But then when I got home after she had passed away,
Mm-hmm.
she had already sent my daughter some things for her room because she was fussing at me. She didn't like how I decorated her room. She was like, I think you decorated everything else great and you didn't do justice." And so as soon
Your
as
mom's telling you this.
that's what she was telling me, about a week ago,
Uh-huh.
before she had passed. And so as I walked in the house to tell my daughter Park she said, "Mom, where's Granny? How's Granny?" And there was the doorbell rang and it was FedEx. My mother had ordered her a new comforter, a brand new big large TV that I did not approve of, and some other things for her room. And I said, "Oh my goodness,
Yep.
that's the one she couldn't do." But that was her saying. I feel anyway. It just the timing just was impeccable.
She did it.
That she was saying, "I'll tell her in my own way that, I had to go." And that's what she did.
So she did pass within those few days.
She did. She
Wow.
did. And as I went home and told my daughter, that's when all this stuff came in. My daughter said, "Oh, it's Christmas." Like, wow, Granny, oh my goodness. And my daughter ended up taking it so much better than I thought she would. She said, "Well, Mom, you should be happy. Granny, she made it. She did it. She made it. She did everything right. And now look, she made it." And I thought, what? She made it. She's in heaven. She made it. Isn't that what we do it for? And I thought, oh my goodness. Like, here it is. I'm a mess. And this little girl gets it. Like, she gets it.
She reminded you.
Yeah, she did. She reminded me. And so, yeah, those little things helped me get through. They really did. So I would say those little things helped me get through what was, I would definitely say, the worst moments of my life. I mean, hands down.
Before we hopped on air, we were talking about little ones and how almost this naiveness,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They don't maybe fully understand, but in the end, maybe they actually do understand all of it in its simplest terms. It's us as adults who are essentially like overcomplicating so
Mhm.
much.
You couldn't have said that better. You couldn't have. And I was telling you before we came on air, I love talking to little people. They're brutally honest. And you know what? Why not? Why not? I was telling you how they always tell me when they don't like my clothes and I don't like your shoes and hey, what did you do the other day? Well, I don't like that. I like this. I like to eat this. And they're just so honest. And that's why I like them.
What was one of the qualities that you took from your mother as being her daughter, but then also as being her business partner? Not many women get to say they worked with their mom.
that she was say what you mean and mean what you say.
Mm.
Say what you mean and mean what you say, and your word is your bond. People really don't care what you you know, people care how you make them feel. They really do. They don't care what you say. They really care how you make them feel. And it was about that with her. She was stern, and she really was. She was a stern person, but she was loving and she was careful. She understood we were in a business, but she understood people. And I think we could take a lot from that. If people just took a second to listen and care, man, how much better would this world be? Take a second and listen. In the day and age where everyone's on their phone, no one's got time. Everyone's doing this, doing that. Just like we're talking right now, face to face. How many times do we get to do that? Right? I'm so enjoying this. I mean, honestly, this is like look, I haven't looked at my phone. This is amazing. It's amazing. Just take the time. Take the time to have that face to face and say what you mean and mean what you say.
That is a great piece of advice. And like you're saying, especially now, right? We can fill our time with, empty promises,
Absolutely.
with virtual conversations. Do you think that people want to be heard?
I do. I think people do want to be heard. I think people do want a platform, especially our youth. I think they have so much to say. And I don't think that people are listening to them. And so they're acting out through their actions because they're not being heard. And that's hurtful to me. But yes, I do. My answer would just definitely be yes.
Do you think there are people who want to listen to the youth then? Because there has to be an A and a B here, right? There's someone
Yeah.
on both ends of the line.
So I think that people, to be honest, want to talk at the youth. I don't think they want to hear the youth. They want to tell the youth what they want the youth to do, but I don't think they want to give the youth a voice. And I think that's what's necessary. You got to give these youth a voice. It's imperative that you do it.
You're in the business of communication.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about childcare and mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like, having all these partnerships within your own family and community, it's all about communication.
Sure.
So in the next just a minute and a half here, I want two pieces of advice from you.
Mm-hmm.
One, what's a piece of advice about communication? And then what is a piece of advice from you?
So, as far as communication goes, I think that we need to open up the lines of communication more within our families, and within our community members. I think our communities could be so much better if all of us work together, and not just have these little silos where we're all working and we say that we all working for the betterment.
So what is a piece of advice that you would give to a woman of the region?
So what I would say is, you know what? Don't be afraid to work with that woman sitting next to you. Don't be afraid to reach out and say, "Hey, I need some help." I think we have to be so strong. And we don't have to be as strong as we think. I mean, I don't know everything, and that's okay for me to say. I'm going to call you and ask you for help if I need it. And we're stronger together. We're stronger together. And so let's do that.
We're stronger together.
Yeah.
That is a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for coming on. I deeply appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Nicole Liggins, and that's what she said.